I still remember the day my acceptance letter to Harvard Medical School arrived. My hands trembled as I held the envelope, heart pounding with a mixture of pride and anticipation. But unlike most future doctors, I couldn't rush to share this moment with my family. Instead, I sat alone in my small apartment, knowing that even Harvard wouldn't be enough to impress my father. You see, in the Winters family, being a doctor wasn't just a profession, it was a legacy. My father, Dr. Marcus Winters, was a renowned cardiothoracic surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital. His father before him had been chief of medicine at Mayo Clinic. The pressure to follow in their footsteps wasn't just heavy, it was suffocating. "Olivia," my father would say, his voice always carrying that edge of disappointment, "medicine isn't just about getting into a good school. It's about being exceptional." But exceptional wasn't enough for him. He wanted me to be exactly like him, to follow his path into cardiothoracic surgery, to work at his hospital, to be his legacy. The problem? I fell in love with emergency medicine instead. The fast pace, the variety of cases, the immediate impact you could have on someone's life. It called to me in a way that scheduled surgeries never did. When I told him about my choice during my third year of medical school, you would have thought I'd announced I was dropping out to join the circus. Emergency medicine? He spat the words out like they tasted bitter. Glorified triage work. No prestige, no real skill required. You're wasting your potential. My mother, as always, sat quietly at his side, her silence its own form of betrayal. My younger sister Madeline, the perfect daughter who was following Dad's footsteps into cardiothoracic surgery, smirked from across the table. But I stood my ground. I matched into one of the top emergency medicine residency programs in the country, not in Boston where my father could oversee my career but in Chicago. The day I left, he didn't even come to say goodbye. "You're running away," he said over the phone. "Taking the easy route. You'll never be more than a basic ER doctor handling sprained ankles and common colds." If he only knew what I was really planning. During my residency, I discovered I had a talent not just for emergency medicine, but for hospital administration and innovation. While other residents were focused solely on clinical work, I was developing new protocols for emergency department efficiency, creating algorithms for better patient flow, and implementing cutting-edge technology to improve patient care. My research caught the attention of hospital administrators across the country. By my final year of residency, I was already being courted by major medical centers. But I had bigger plans. I spent every free moment studying business administration, healthcare management, and hospital operations. I worked extra shifts, saved every penny, and built connections with healthcare venture capitalists. My colleagues thought I was crazy, working myself to exhaustion. But I had a vision. When Northwestern Memorial offered me an attending position with a fast track to administrative leadership, I took it. Within 2 years, I was running the emergency department. Within 4, I was the youngest chief of emergency medicine in the hospital's history. But that wasn't enough. I had learned from my father that being an excellent doctor wasn't enough. You needed to shape the future of medicine. So I started my own healthcare consulting company on the side, developing revolutionary emergency department management systems that transformed struggling hospitals into models of efficiency. My innovations caught the attention of major healthcare groups. Soon I was being offered partnership opportunities, board positions, and eventually, the chance to take over a struggling Chicago hospital system. With the backing of venture capital firms who believed in my vision, I acquired not just one hospital but an entire network. I transformed them completely, implementing my emergency medicine protocols across the system, introducing cutting-edge technology, and most importantly, focusing on patient care over profit. Within 3 years, my hospital network became known as one of the most innovative and efficient healthcare systems in the Midwest. All this time, I maintained minimal contact with my family. The occasional holiday call, a brief email exchange about family matters. They knew I was working in Chicago, but I never shared the details of my success. My father still introduced me to his colleagues as his daughter who chose emergency medicine, always with that slight tone of disappointment. Then came the family dinner that changed everything. It was my sister Madeline's celebration for making partner at Dad's surgical practice. Of course, I was expected to attend. Walking into my parents' luxurious Boston home, I felt like I was stepping back in time. The same judgmental glances, the same condescending smiles. "Olivia," my father said, barely looking up from his conversation with Madeline about their latest surgical techniques. Still working in that Chicago ER? I sipped my wine, thinking about the board meeting I'd led that morning, discussing the acquisition of 3 new hospitals. Still in emergency medicine, yes. Madeline couldn't help herself. You know, if you ever want to do something more challenging, I could put in a word at Mass General. Maybe help you transition to a real specialty. A disgrace to medicine, my father muttered, shaking his head. Harvard education wasted on treating runny noses in an ER. I set down my glass, standing slowly. The old me would have stayed quiet, would have taken their judgment and criticism. But I wasn't that person anymore. Actually, I said, my voice steady, I should get back to Chicago. I have an important meeting tomorrow about expanding our hospital network. My father's laugh was sharp and dismissive. Hospital network? Don't tell me you're playing administrator now too. Giving up medicine entirely? I grabbed my coat, feeling a strange sense of calm. Let them think what they wanted. In 3 months, my company would be acquiring several East Coast hospitals, including one very close to home. They would learn the truth soon enough. As I reached the door, my father's voice followed me. You're a disgrace to medicine, Olivia. You'll never be anything more than a failed doctor. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because I knew something they didn't. My name was about to appear on a lot more than just an ER department door. 3 months passed in a blur of board meetings, hospital acquisitions, and preparations for our East Coast expansion. I had just finished signing the final paperwork to acquire Boston Metropolitan Hospital, my father's biggest competitor, when I received the call that would change everything. Olivia. My sister's voice was frantic. Mom collapsed at Dad's award ceremony. They're rushing her to the ER. My heart stopped. Which hospital? Boston Met. It was closest. Madeline's voice cracked. Dad's furious. He wanted her at Mass General, but the ambulance insisted. I was already booking a flight. I'll be there in 2 hours. Why? She scoffed. It's not like you can help. You're just an ER doctor. I ended the call, a strange calm settling over me. They had no idea that as of this morning I wasn't just any ER doctor. I was the owner and chief executive of Boston Metropolitan Hospital. The flight from Chicago felt endless. I spent it reviewing my mother's medical history on my secure hospital network. Access I had but couldn't explain to my family. Her symptoms suggested a possible aortic dissection, the kind of critical condition that would infuriate my father even more. He would want to operate himself, but hospital policy wouldn't allow it. I landed in Boston and headed straight to the hospital. The massive building bore a new sign, installed just that morning, Winters Medical Center at Boston Metropolitan Hospital. Below it, in smaller letters, founded by Dr. Olivia Winters. Walking through the emergency department doors, I heard my father before I saw him. This is ridiculous. He was shouting at the charge nurse. I'm Dr. Marcus Winters. I demand to see the chief of surgery immediately. I'm sorry, Dr. Winters, the nurse replied calmly, but all decisions about Mrs. Winters' care must go through the chief of emergency medicine and our hospital leadership. Do you know who I am? My father's face was red with rage. I'm the head of cardiothoracic surgery at Mass General. And this isn't Mass General, a familiar voice responded. Dr. Sarah Chin, my hand-picked chief of emergency medicine, stepped forward. This is Winters Medical Center and we have protocols. My father turned to Madeline. Call every hospital board member you know. I want this place's leadership on the phone now. That won't be necessary. I stepped forward, my heels clicking on the polished floor. Every head turned. Olivia. My father's confusion quickly turned to anger. What are you doing here? We don't need an ER doctor right now. Your mother needs a real surgeon. Dr. Chin smiled slightly. Actually, Dr. Winters, I believe you should speak with our hospital's owner and chief executive. She gestured to me. Dr. Olivia Winters. The silence that followed was deafening. My father's face went from red to white. Madeline's mouth fell open. Several nurses tried to hide their smiles. They'd been waiting for this moment. That's impossible, my father stammered. This is Boston Metropolitan Hospital. Not anymore. I pulled out my hospital ID badge. As of this morning, this is Winters Medical Center, the newest addition to the Winters Healthcare Network. My healthcare network. I turned to Dr. Chen. What's my mother's status? Type A aortic dissection confirmed by CT. She's prepped for surgery. Dr. Jackson, our chief of cardiothoracic surgery, is standing by. Dr. Jackson? My father exploded. I should be doing this surgery. No, I said firmly. You shouldn't. Not only would it be against hospital policy to operate on family, but you're not on staff here. Dr. Jackson is one of the top aortic surgeons in the country. I recruited her personally. Madeline stepped forward, her voice shaking. This is some kind of joke. You're just an ER doctor. I smiled. Follow me. I led them through the hospital's pristine corridors, past state-of-the-art emergency bays and trauma rooms equipped with technology Mass General wouldn't have for years. Every staff member we passed nodded respectfully. Good evening, Dr. Winters. We reached the main lobby where a massive donor wall dominated the space. At the top, in elegant letters, Winters Medical Center, founded 2024 by Drive Olivia Winters, Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Board. While you were busy judging my career choices, I said quietly, I was building this. A network of hospitals across the Midwest and now the East Coast. Hospitals that prioritize patient care over profit, that integrate emergency medicine with cutting-edge surgery, that treat every patient and every doctor with respect. My father stared at the wall, then at me as if seeing me for the first time. Before he could speak, Dr. Chen approached with an update. Dr. Winters, your mother's surgery was successful. Dr. Jackson said it was a textbook repair. She's in recovery now. Thank you, Sarah. I turned to my father and sister. Would you like to see her? They followed me in silence to the recovery room. My mother lay peacefully, surrounded by the most advanced monitoring equipment available. Dr. Jackson stood nearby reviewing post-op notes. Perfect repair, she reported. Mrs. Winters should make a full recovery. My father, the great surgeon, looked lost. I should have been the one to operate. No, Dad, I said gently. You shouldn't have. Because sometimes being a great doctor means knowing when to step back and let others lead. That's something I learned in the ER. My mother stirred, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw me, she smiled weakly. Olivia? Where am I? You're at my hospital, Mom. You're going to be fine. Your hospital? Her confused gaze drifted to the wall, where my name and title were displayed prominently. Oh my God. Over the next few days as my mother recovered, the truth about my career slowly sank in for my family. They learned about my healthcare innovations, the protocols I'd developed that were now industry standards, the technology companies I'd partnered with to revolutionize emergency medicine. My father spent hours in my office, studying the awards and accolades I'd never mentioned. The Wall Street Journal article about my hospital network's success. The medical journal publications. The Humanitarian Award for providing cutting-edge care to underserved communities. One evening as I was reviewing acquisition documents, he knocked on my office door. I was wrong, he said simply. About everything. I looked up at him, at the man who had driven me to achieve more than he could have imagined, even if it wasn't in the way he'd planned. I know, I replied. He shifted uncomfortably. The protocols your ER uses. They're revolutionary. The integration with surgery, the efficiency metrics. I've never seen anything like it. That's because you never looked beyond your own specialty, Dad. Emergency medicine isn't just about treating symptoms. It's about seeing the whole picture, about making split-second decisions that save lives. He nodded slowly. Your sister. She's thinking about switching to emergency medicine. I couldn't help but laugh. Let me guess, she wants to work here? Can you blame her? You've built something extraordinary. He paused. I don't suppose you're hiring cardiothoracic surgeons? Actually, I smiled, we are. But you'd have to interview like everyone else. And you'd have to follow my protocols. I think, he said quietly, I'd like to learn from my daughter. As he left my office, I sat back in my chair looking out over the city. The hospital's lights glowed warmly in the gathering dusk, a beacon of hope and healing. On my desk sat a new nameplate, one that represented not just my title, but the journey that had brought me here. Dr. Olivia Winters, founder and Chief Executive Officer, Winters Healthcare Network. Sometimes the greatest success comes not from following someone else's path, but from having the courage to forge your own. And sometimes the best revenge isn't proving others wrong. It's proving yourself right. My father had called me a disgrace to medicine. Now my name was on the building where his wife's life was saved. But more importantly, I had transformed emergency medicine, saved countless lives, and built something that would last long after the family drama faded. That night, as I did my rounds in the ER, because I never stopped being an emergency doctor at heart, I thought about all the young medical students who would train here. They would learn that there's no such thing as just an ER doctor. That every specialty has value. That innovation can come from unexpected places. And maybe, just maybe, they would learn that the best way to honor a legacy is to build your own. As for my father, he started his new position last week. Under my leadership. Sometimes life has a way of teaching the hardest lessons to those who need them most. And my name? It still stands proudly on the building, a daily reminder that success isn't about following expectations. It's about exceeding them in your own way.